History has a way of hiding its most dangerous secrets in plain sight. For centuries, we were told that Mary Magdalene was a sinner, that the Cathars were heretics, and that the feminine face of the divine had no place in the story of humanity. But what if all of that was a deliberate silence? What if hidden beneath ashes and ruins, there has always been a prophecy, one that points to our time, and to you? Because the truth is unsettling. The Cathars spoke of a light that would return 700 years after Montségur fell, and today that prophecy seems to be unfolding. Across the world, the sacred feminine is rising, through intuition, through compassion, through the wisdom long denied. If you've ever felt that the old ways of power no longer work, and that something deeper is calling, then this message was meant for you. Fire has always carried a hypnotic presence, hasn't it? The flames move as if they hold ancient secrets, secrets that outlast kings and empires. Picture yourself before an old parchment, its faded letters breathing like guardians of a memory that refuses to die. The silence is heavy but not empty, a silence that asks you to listen to what has never been spoken aloud. And it is here, in this atmosphere, that our journey begins. For many peoples, fire was never just heat. It was a doorway. The Greeks saw it as the gift of Prometheus. The Druids called it the eternal flame of wisdom. Even today, when someone lights a candle, it is never just light. It is a prayer, an intention, a message whispered into the invisible. Think about it. Every time you light a candle at home, you may be repeating a gesture as old as humanity itself. Now close your eyes for a moment and imagine a voice echoing through the stones of a forgotten fortress. That voice whispers, "In the heart of the mountains of southern France, the Cathars kept a final prophecy, a vision of the return of the sacred feminine. These words are not simply a distant memory, they are a key. Whoever hears them feels something stir, as if an inner flame were waiting to awaken. Isn't it strange how certain words feel as if they pierce straight through time and touch your soul? It's like hearing a melody you've never learned, yet somehow remember singing. That sensation is the invitation of prophecy. It is not merely about old stories, but about a living mystery, as if listening draws you inside an enigma that has always been calling your name. And notice, this mystery is not locked away in ruined castles or buried manuscripts. It shows itself in daily life. When a woman chooses to trust her intuition, even against the cold logic of reason. When someone stands for truth, even knowing the cost. When love dares to bloom in the midst of darkness. All of these moments are part of what they once called the light. But to understand where this flame began, we must go back in time. Long before the prophecy echoed across Montségur, there was a people who dared to challenge the established order. Men and women who believed in the purity of the soul, in the duality of existence, and in the promise of Sophia, the divine wisdom. They are the ones we will meet next. The Cathars were not just another medieval sect lost in the shadows of history. They were seekers, visionaries who dared to speak of a world divided between light and shadow, spirit and matter. To them, the soul was a spark of divine purity, trapped in a world of corruption, yearning to return home. They lived simply, refusing wealth, power, and even the excesses of the church, which they believed was poisoned by earthly desire. Their communities were modest, yet their faith carried a radiance that threatened the might of empires. Their vision was rooted in Sophia, the feminine face of divine wisdom. For the Cathars, Sophia was not a distant goddess enshrined in temples, but the living whisper within, the inner voice that calls each soul to awaken. To walk in harmony with Sophia meant living in purity, compassion, and uncompromising truth. They saw the material world as a prison, yet believed love and knowledge were the keys to liberation. Their faith was radical, not because it promised power, but because it promised freedom. And freedom, as history shows, is always dangerous to those who control. The Church of Rome, unsettled by their growing influence, branded them heretics. In their eyes, the Cathars' simplicity exposed the corruption of their own wealth and authority. So they struck with fire and sword. In 1244, the fortress of Montségur became the stage for one of history's most haunting sieges. Imagine men, women, and children holding fast to their truth as an army of thousands surrounded them. After months of hunger and resistance, Montségur fell. More than 200 Cathars, refusing to renounce their faith, walked willingly into the flames. Their voices were silenced, but their courage carved itself into the stone of that mountain. And yet, the Cathars did not truly vanish into fire. There are whispers that before Montségur fell, a small group escaped, carrying sacred manuscripts and hidden treasures of wisdom. Legend suggests that what they preserved was not gold, but a seed, a teaching meant to survive beyond destruction. They may have known that history would try to erase them, but they trusted that truth could never be extinguished. In those fragments of memory lies the hint of a prophecy, one not about an ending but about a return. What makes their story even more compelling is how their philosophy resonates today. Our modern world is also split in dualities: technology and spirit, abundance and emptiness, outer noise and inner silence. Many of us feel the same pull the Cathars once did, the desire to pierce through illusions and recover a wisdom institutions have long tried to suppress. Their story is not just history, it is a mirror. It reflects the hunger we still carry for authenticity, for meaning, for a deeper truth that cannot be bought or sold. And so, a question rises from the ashes of Montségur. What was the prophecy they left behind? Could it be that their sacrifice was not only for their own time, but for ours? The legends say that after 7 centuries, their light would return, not as armies or empires, but as a renewal of the sacred feminine, a wisdom rising again, not to conquer with violence, but to heal with love and truth. And it is to that prophecy we must now turn. Among the ruins of Montségur, legends still whisper of a final prophecy. It is said that before their fall, the Cathars declared, "After 700 years the laurel will turn green again, and the light of Montségur will shine." To some, these were the words of a broken people facing annihilation, a poetic farewell before walking into the flames. But to others they were far more than that, an encrypted promise, a seed carefully planted, meant to sprout centuries later when the world was ready to understand. The phrase "the light of Montségur" has stirred the imagination of mystics for generations. Was it a literal light, a sacred fire that once burned upon the mountain? Or was it symbolic, wisdom itself, buried under centuries of ashes, waiting for seekers to uncover it? The prophecy pointed to a cycle of 700 years, and indeed around the 1940s, the world entered a season of great upheaval and transformation. Women's voices began to rise again, hidden knowledge resurfaced, and a thirst for deeper spiritual truths began to spread across cultures. Many believe that this prophecy was not about political power or the rebuilding of empires, but about the rebirth of the sacred feminine. In the medieval world, the voice of women was silenced, their intuition dismissed, their authority stripped away. But the Cathars, with their reverence for Sophia, the divine wisdom, seemed to see further. They hinted at a time when that imbalance would be restored, when what had been suppressed would flow once more like a hidden river breaking through the stone. Perhaps then, the prophecy was not about a fixed date, but about the eternal rhythm of forgetting and remembering, of exile and return. And if we dare to look, we can see signs of this renewal everywhere, in the growing reverence for Mary Magdalene, not as a sinner, but as a teacher and guide. In the rediscovery of the divine feminine in traditions across the globe, from the Black Madonna, hidden in European chapels, to the ancient goddesses still honored in India. In the shift away from rigid dogmas toward spiritual paths rooted in love, equality, and embodied wisdom. The laurel, once withered, is indeed beginning to turn green again. But the prophecy is not only about the world at large, it also speaks to the individual soul. What good is an ancient vision if it does not touch our daily lives? The light of Montségur may not be a flame on a mountaintop. It may be the quiet fire that awakens within you when you choose intuition over fear, when you honor compassion over judgment, when you dare to live truthfully despite the cost. Every such act is a fulfillment of the prophecy, every awakened heart a branch of the laurel turning green. Yet the mystery is not complete, for the prophecy does not stand alone. It is bound to another story, one older than Montségur, one carried not in fortresses but in flesh and spirit. It is the story of a woman who bore hidden knowledge, whose presence is still felt in the caves and hills of southern France. To grasp the full depth of this promise, we must turn to her, Mary Magdalene, and the legacy she carried across time. Mary Magdalene has always been more than the labels history placed upon her. While tradition painted her as a sinner redeemed, Other voices whisper of a far greater truth, that she was the bearer of hidden wisdom, the keeper of gnosis, and perhaps even the true spiritual successor of Christ. The Cathars themselves revered her, seeing in Magdalene the embodiment of Sophia, the sacred feminine silenced by power. Legends across southern France, especially in Languedoc and Provence, tell of her presence after the crucifixion. It is said she traveled across the Mediterranean, arriving on the shores of Gaul, where she carried the flame of hidden teachings. Chapels, caves, and holy wells dedicated to her still dot the landscape, silent witnesses to a story written not in official scriptures but in the memory of the land itself. In this narrative, Magdalene is not a figure of shame, but of initiation. She holds the chalice not just as a relic, but as a symbol of the womb, the vessel of life, the heart of divine wisdom. Artists, mystics, and poets have long intuited this, that she was not simply following Christ, but walking beside him, carrying half of a truth the world was not ready to hear. When we look closely, her story mirrors the Cathar prophecy. Both speak of a suppressed wisdom, waiting for the right moment to return. Magdalene's silence was never emptiness. It was a seed, much like the laurel at Montségur. Her presence in the south of France weaves seamlessly with the Cathar tradition, as if she were the hidden root nourishing their vision across centuries. And if we allow this possibility to sink in, something powerful happens. The figure of Magdalene transforms from myth into mirror. She reflects back to us our own potential to carry hidden truths, to embody wisdom that institutions may fear but the soul cannot forget. In her, we see the invitation to reclaim what was lost, intuition, tenderness, and strength united. But the story does not end with Magdalene alone, for her legacy points us towards something larger, a collective awakening, a rebalancing that the world desperately longs for. It is the call of the sacred feminine returning, not only in story but in our time, in our choices, in our way of being. And this is where the prophecy begins to meet the present. Across cultures and centuries, symbols of the sacred feminine have quietly endured. The rose, blooming with beauty and thorns, speaks of love that holds both ecstasy and pain. The chalice, a vessel of life, mirrors the womb as the source of creation. Water, endlessly flowing, reflects intuition, healing, and renewal. And Sophia, the eternal wisdom, has always been there, sometimes hidden, sometimes forgotten, but never destroyed. Today, these symbols are resurfacing with new power. People across the world are awakening to the need for balance between masculine and feminine energies, not as opposites but as complementary forces, logic and intuition, structure and flow, action and compassion. This is not just philosophy. It is visible in movements for equality, in the rise of holistic healing, in the call for sustainability, and in the demand for more compassionate leadership. Think about it. When someone chooses to listen deeply rather than argue, they embody the feminine principle. When a community values collaboration over competition, they are enacting the prophecy of balance. Even in business, companies that nurture creativity, empathy, and intuition are thriving in ways that rigid hierarchies cannot. The sacred feminine is no longer abstract. It is alive in the choices shaping our daily lives. And yet, this awakening is also deeply personal. It asks each of us, where have we silenced our intuition? Where have we allowed fear to override compassion, or control to dominate flow? To honor the sacred feminine is not to reject the masculine, but to weave them together. It is to become whole. A man who embraces tenderness is no less strong. A woman who embodies wisdom is no less powerful. From this perspective, the Cathar prophecy takes on a startling clarity. The light of Montségur was never about armies or empires, but about this very moment, the healing of our relationship with the feminine. As humanity faces climate crises, division, and disconnection, it is the feminine energy that points us back toward harmony. The rose blooms again, the water flows, and the chalice is lifted. And so the prophecy steps out of history and into our present. But it does not end there. For the true mystery is not whether the sacred feminine is returning, but whether we are ready to recognize ourselves as part of that return, which brings us to the final reflection. Every prophecy, no matter how ancient, ultimately turns into a mirror. The Cathar vision is not only about a distant future, it is about the present moment, about you listening now. The sacred feminine does not return as an external event. It awakens within each heart that dares to feel, to question, to remember. Perhaps the question is not when the prophecy will be fulfilled, but who will embody it. What if the light of Montségur is not a flame on a mountain, but the quiet fire within your own soul? Think of the moments when you chose compassion over judgment, intuition over fear, truth over convenience. Those were not small gestures. They were sparks of prophecy, fragments of a larger awakening. Each act of courage and tenderness is a thread weaving the feminine back into the fabric of our world. This reflection asks us to move beyond passive listening into living participation. It is not enough to admire ancient mysteries. They are invitations. The Cathars, Mary Magdalene, Sophia, all of these archetypes call us to remember who we are. They whisper that the same wisdom we revere in them is alive in us, waiting for expression in our choices, our relationships, and our visions for the future. Imagine then that the prophecy is not a story of endings, but of beginnings. Not about ruins and ashes, but about renewal and rebirth. What would it mean if humanity's greatest hidden treasure was not buried in a fortress, but hidden in the human heart? If you carry the light they foresaw, then history is not behind you. It is unfolding through you. This reflection can be unsettling because it shifts responsibility back to us. It is easier to believe that change will come from outside, from some event or revelation. But what if the Cathars meant something radical? What if they were pointing across time to the moment you decide to embody truth, to live as if Sophia herself were guiding your steps? And so the final question lingers. What if the prophecy was never waiting for the world to change, but waiting for you to awaken? The answer cannot be spoken in words. It must be lived. Which brings us finally to the closing of this initiatory journey. From the fire of Montségur to the hidden caves of Provence, the prophecy has traveled like a secret flame. It was never extinguished, only waiting, sheltered in silence. And now, as you listen, that same flame flickers within you. What began as legend is no longer distant. It is alive in this very moment, in your breath, in your awareness. The Cathars believed that truth could not be destroyed, only concealed. Mary Magdalene carried it across seas. The sacred feminine guarded it in symbols, and generations of seekers protected it in whispers. But tonight, it is no longer a whisper. It is a voice rising, reminding you that you are part of this story. The prophecy is not about them, it is about us. To recognize the sacred feminine is not only to honor the past, it is to shape the future. Every act of love, every choice for compassion, every moment of listening to your intuition becomes part of the prophecy's fulfillment. You are not a spectator of history, you are the continuation of it. And perhaps that is the greatest secret the Cathars left behind. So ask yourself, where does the light of Montségur burn in your own life? Is it in the courage to speak your truth? Is it in the gentleness with which you treat others? Is it in the silence where you finally hear your soul's voice? The answers will come, not as doctrines, but as living experiences unfolding day by day. This is why we gather in spaces like this. To remember, to reconnect, to keep the flame alive together. If this journey has touched something within you, I invite you to share it. Leave your thoughts in the comments so others may walk this path with you. Like, subscribe, and activate the bell, not just for another video, but as a commitment to continue awakening together. For the flame of prophecy is not kept in books or temples, it is kept in hearts. From Montségur's fire to the fire that lives in you, the sacred feminine has returned. Not as a distant promise, but as a living presence. And it begins here, now, with us. And so, seeker, we return to the question that began this journey. What if the prophecy of the Cathars was never about a distant future, but about us, here and now? The fire of Montségur was not extinguished. It has been waiting for hearts like yours to carry it forward. The sacred feminine is not an idea to be admired from afar. It is a force to be lived, embodied, and shared. What would your life look like if you allowed that light to guide you? How would your choices change if compassion outweighed fear? If intuition spoke louder than doubt? Could it be that the very transformation the Cathars foresaw is waiting for you to ignite it in your daily life? These are not abstract questions, they are doorways to your awakening, so I invite you to step into the prophecy, reflect on it, live it, and share it. Leave a comment with what resonated most deeply with you, because your voice may awaken another seeker's flame. Like this video, subscribe, and activate the notifications, not out of routine, but as a conscious choice to continue this path of remembrance together. For the fire of Montsegur still burns, and tonight it burns in you. To understand more about subjects related to cosmic rays, esotericism, theosophy, and advanced spirituality, and access knowledge little known by the general public, access the link in the first pinned comment and discover the ebook, What Are Cosmic Rays, written by Bathajal.